Hey everybody, welcome to Korean Lanta Mentorship. So you know what's funny is that I've had several people in my channel comment saying like I've watched other people's explanations about debt payoff, aka what we formerly used to call velocity banking, and people always say other people's explanations are kind of confusing, but when I saw yours, it clicked, right? And I look for the word clicked in my comments and, take a look at this. I watched plenty of your videos, started implementing in June on my mortgage. Thank you for what you do. I couldn't understand at first, but kept at it until eventually it clicked. I'm speeding at 100 miles per hour nowadays. Another one here, the poker face. It's because it's mentally it has clicked and they have been placing their money in the wrong place. It's okay. Just come join the VB cult and watch, and you'll have more cash flow over the months. I'm in the cult VB crack. This one here, I have to say thank you for your videos. It finally clicked for me when I copied your spreadsheet and input my numbers. Then it all made sense, right? And so, yeah, and so I think one of the reasons I created this channel is just because I was actually confused by other people's explanations. And I don't see people using Excel. They're always using a whiteboard, a bunch of numbers in the whiteboard. And, when I look at that, I'm like overwhelmed and confused. So we're going to do what we always do, which is pay off debt using a spreadsheet, right? And we're going to do it using what we call now the velocity method, formerly known as velocity banking, but we can't use that term anymore because the state regulators went over of Illinois went after the Kwok brothers, another YouTuber. So we're gonna go ahead. Let's get started. What is this debt payoff method? Well, when you make good income and you have little money left over because you have lots of debt, right? So here we have 5 credit cards, 2 auto loans, one huge student loan, and then a mortgage, modest mortgage, and then on top of that, $2,000 of personal expenses not tied to debt, food, gas, insurance, and all the other good stuff. You only have 96 cents left over, not even dollar left over this month. The question is, do you need to make more money to get out of this hole? And the answer to that is, well, it depends, okay? And what we're going to do using the velocity method is with the same income and the same expenses. I'm going to go ahead and copy the expenses. We're going to be deliberate in how we treat our checking and savings account. So for the average person, they treat their checking account as the final destination of your money. But with this velocity method, we treat it as the second step or the intermediary step of our what we call our entire banking workflow, right? So what we're going to do is make sure that the checking and savings is pretty much zero as much as possible, and then focus on this cash flow number. Now, for the average American style of banking, checking, savings, cash flow are all considered to be the same thing, whereas with the velocity method, checking and savings or cash flow are considered to be two different things because in our checking and savings, money is not meant to be stored in our checking account, right? It's meant to be stored in something called a line of credit. Now, you might be asking if you're new to this channel, what's a line of credit? Well, it's basically a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again. So this is my home equity line of credit example here, $200,000, 8%. So there's different types. There's personal lines, business lines, home equity. Home equity will realistically give you the lowest interest rate and the highest limits because it's based on your home equity being collateral for the line of credit. Now, technically, a credit card is a line of credit because you can swipe it, pay it back, and use it over and over again. But a credit card has higher interest rates and is more restrictive. But the truth is, we want to get as much credit as possible, right? All of it. And when do you get credit? Do you get credit like a line of credit when you only have $96 left over? The answer to that is no. Okay. Why is that the answer? It's because banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? So if you have $96, 96 cents left over, and you're trying to get a $200,000 line of credit, bank's going to look at you and say no thanks because a person who's in that position and needs money is a huge risk, right? So banks don't lend money to people who need it. And when they see a person who needs money, they think, bad person who is not going to pay me back. Remember your friends and family members who asked you for money and said, hey, can I borrow some money because I need it? They literally told you, according to the bank's translator, human speak translator, that they're not going to pay you back because people who need money don't pay you back. All right. Now, why do we demonstrate with a free and clear line of credit? Because you'll understand the benefits of the strategy right away. Whereas we have more realistic scenarios where we have like 20 debts, $4 left over, $5,000 of income, and a maxed out line of credit, which is generally what happens when you don't know the strategy because you treat your line of credit like a maxed out credit card, right? But we just make it easy to demonstrate, and you'll be able to see that, hey, even with the same income, you'll be able to change this 96 cents to some crazy number without making more money. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to rank our debts using something called a cash flow index. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a formula of the payment, or I'm sorry, the debt divided by the payment amount, 5,000 divided by 175. And what this does is ranks your debt according to an arbitrary index. And the lower the number, that's the one you want to pay off first, right? And the higher the number, that's the one you want to pay off last, okay? So why do we want to pay this $320,000 mortgage last? I mean, don't you want to pay off your mortgage first and be debt free and not have to ever pay that mortgage again and live in your home? Well, a lot of people think that. But mathematically, it doesn't make sense because I literally have to give someone $320,000 for only $1,500 of cash flow, right? So instead of doing that, why don't I pay, let's say, these two credit cards, 57,000 for even more cash flow, 1,800, than paying 320,000. So you get more bang for your buck for paying off these low cash flow index debts. Okay, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to start off with these five because they're the lowest, and then move them into something called a line of credit, right? And how much credit card debt is this? We're going to have to check. So let me go ahead and sum it up. It's 5, 8, 15, 27, 30, and I'm going to go ahead and sum it, okay? And that's $85,000 of debt. Now, do we need a $200,000 line at this point? Probably not. In fact, let me just reduce it just to show that, hey, if we had 100,000, that would be cool. And I know for some of you, 100,000 is like out of this world, right? But let me go ahead and move that $85,000 balance into the line of credit. And then guess what happens here? Okay, so this is the most amazing part. Look, the income stays the same, okay? And then these payments go to zero. These five credit cards. And guess what happens when these five credit cards want to go to zero just by doing a transfer of the debt? Okay, we didn't eliminate the debt, we just transfer the debt. If you take a look here, we go from 96 cents to $2,828.46 without making more money. See, if you're in this situation, you have 96 cents left over, mentally it's going to feel like you're drowning, right? And so what we're going to do is going to free up this cash flow. And then remember, we treat our checking account as a place we don't store money. It's a place, it's an intermediary. It's a place where money is temporarily stored, but not permanently, right? And then we move it into our debt, aka the line of credit. So when we put the debt into or the paycheck into the line of credit, we satisfy the minimum payment, right? So what we're going to do is show you what the minimum payment is, which is mostly based on the interest. But to get the next month's balance, what you do is you put that paycheck in, you add the I'm sorry, paycheck in, take out the expenses, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. And to get the next month's balance, it's the previous month's balance, previous month's interest, minus our cash flow, 2828.46. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the interest, which is based on the average daily balance. And I'm going to go ahead and do that right here. And we're going to take the average daily balance, multiply by the interest rate, and then you divide by 12. And so when you put this $9,000 paycheck into a $557 minimum payment, it's always going to be satisfied, right? So let's go ahead and do that right here. And I know what some of you are thinking is like, wow, I don't even make that much money. But here's the thing, the more money you make, the more the bank will lend you. And so you can get into serious trouble making more money and getting into a lot of debt because remember, banks don't lend money to people who need it. So if you're kind of low income or broke, the bank won't lend you relatively as much. And again, we have five credit cards, two auto loans, one big student loan because we're probably making the 9,000 a month because maybe went to professional school or a lawyer or something, right? And so let me go ahead and do this, and I'm going to copy and paste. And you see how the balance and the interest goes down, right? So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then let's go do this. We see that in month 34, right? Month 34, whoa, it's been paid off, right? So month 34, it's been paid off. And then I'm just going to go ahead and write in our milestone 34 months. and that's 85K. And look at that. In less than 3 years, we got rid of the credit card debt, right? Look at that. So now we have the auto loans, the two auto loans, the student loan, the mortgage. So luckily we have this loan calculator right here. So 34, and then I'm going to do this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use the cash flow index again, right? So this cash flow index is what we use to determine the what debt payoff order we're going to have. And we're going to do the two auto loans. So some of you might be thinking, hey, why don't we pay this 7% loan off first? Well, if you pay $156,000, you're only getting $2,322 of cash flow. Whereas if we pay much less, we'll get much more cash flow relatively in accordance to the balance that we paid off, right? So what we're going to do, okay, is that we're just going to pay these off, immediately get this quick cash flow, about I think $800 or 750, and then we're going to use that cash flow to pay off this debt. Okay, so let me go ahead and see how much that is. We're going to go copy and paste. I'm going to sum it up, and that's 19 grand. So now what we're going to do is move the two auto loans into the line of credit. Let's go ahead and do it. Control V, and then that's going to be plus 19097.89, right? And then let's go ahead and do that. And then this is going to be 00. And then this is going to be $3,592.10, right? And so now I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this. And then this is going to be minus 3592.1. Okay. And now that's going to be 40 months, right? 40 months that we paid off the two cars. Okay. Isn't that cool? All right. So now let's go ahead and do this 40 months. So it's just 6 more months till all the cars are paid off. So 85 plus 42, and then that's going to be 127K. Okay. And then now it's going to be the student loan and the mortgage, and then in 40 months, right? So this is 00, and then 40, 40. Now we use the same cash flow index to pay off the debt. Okay. So this is going to be this one and this one. And then now what do we do? Well, basically we're going to do something called chunking, or I don't know if I should call it chunking. That sounds kind of gross. We'll call it the sweep. So basically what we're going to do is move a piece of the loan into the line of credit. And actually there's two ways you can do this. So there's the default, which is extra payments, or you could just move a piece of loan into line of credit and just repeat the process over and over again. Now, everybody knows they can do extra payments. Now, why is it so hard for the average person to do extra payments? Because it leads to decision fatigue, and you have to think about how much you need to send every single month, because when you overpay a loan, it's not easy to, let's say, get back the money. Whereas when you're doing a line of credit, it's much easier. Now, there is a perceived risk, because obviously you can use your lines of credit or credit cards as a backup if you do need money, if you overpay a loan. But I'm going to tell you something, just from practical experience, it's much easier to overpay a loan with a line, because all your mindset is making sure both your checking account and your line of credit go to zero, and you just rinse and repeat it over and over again. Whereas when you directly overpay a loan, that doesn't happen, right? It will lead to decision fatigue. Okay. I mean, I have this little chart here about the psychological differences between overpaying a loan and a line of credit, with the line of credit, and just directly doing it. But you know it's true, because if it wasn't true, wouldn't everybody just overpay their loans? And why do you think there's so many TikToks out there where it's like, oh, I didn't pay my credit card bills because I just you know I didn't want to pay the bank because I want to make sure that I can pay my other expenses first. And it's like, well, why don't you just dump all your money into the credit card and then pay your expenses with the credit card? Revolutionary idea, right? But people don't think like that. So that's what leads to extra payments not being done by the vast majority of the population. Doesn't mean it doesn't work. It's just that most people won't do it. Okay, so let me just kind of show you how this works. So here, let's say we take $10,000 of our checking account. Okay, I'm sorry, not a checking account, of the loan. So we'll take $10,000 of the student loan and then move it into a line of credit. So I'm just going to do this 10000, right? And then this will be, actually, it will be right here. So let's say we move 10,000 from the loan to the line of credit. And look at that. In 2 months, hold on. Yeah, in 2 months, that's gone. See that? So two, and then you just rinse and repeat, and then you see that 10,000 is gone every 2 or 3 months, and then wablam, alakazam, right? And that's just what we call what I call the sweep, right? You just move a piece of loan into a line, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. Okay. Now let me just show you with a calculator what the outcome is. So give me one moment. So what we got to do is just fill in the details here. And so let me just go to do that right here. And this is a big loan. It's a big student loan, 200,000, right? 200,000. And then what's the current balance? Current balance is 148,112, right? So 148,112. And the interest rate is 7%, 10 years, and the payment amount is 2322.17, 2322.17. And then let me just do this. So 8%, 10,000. And so what's the monthly income? The monthly income is 9442. 9442. And then the living expenses is just everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. So that's these two right here. So that would be 3527.73. So remember, we're trying to pay off the student loan. So we sum up everything except for the student loan. So 3527.73. So 3527.73. All right, so we see this gets paid off in 2.3 years. Woohoo. So let's go ahead and do 0 right here. Okay, 40 plus 2.3 times 12. So that's going to be 68 years, or not years, months, right? And then maybe 327K. And then we just do the same thing here. So 68 months, right? So 68. And then we just rinse and repeat the same process again. So now what we do is we just put 2,000 expenses, right? So 2,000. And then now we do it with the 30-year mortgage. So let me just kind of do this. So 30 years, what's the payment amount? It's 1527.73. So 1527.73. Interest rate, I believe, is 4%. And then what's the original amount? Original amount is 320. So 320,000. And then the current balance is 284,875.5. So 284,875.5. And then, whoa, look at that, 3.5 years. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Like, what's up with this 8% line of credit? And let me tell you something. Small sweeps to a line of credit is totally different experience than moving the whole loan into a line of credit. So let's say that you heard on the internet that all loans are bad and lines of credit are good, so you're going to move a 4% loan into an 8% line of credit. Look what happened. We pay 45 grand in interest. Now, 3.8 years is still pretty good, but 45 grand in interest, ooh, that's a little bit bad. And as line of credits can have variable interest rates. So let's say this is 9%. You see how it increases dramatically, right? 10, 15, 30, right? See, and you definitely lose money if you use a 30% line of credit, okay? But let me just show you this. Doing in $10,000 sweeps, even a 30% line of credit will just only be about $27,000 of interest, right? So think of it as like an oven where you're kind of putting something in the oven and then opening the door every like 5 minutes. Okay, I don't know if that's the best analogy, but if unlike moving the whole loan into a line of credit, that's kind of like closing the door of a really hot oven rather than opening it like every 5 minutes, right? So that's the kind of like analogy that I think of. But if let's do 8%, and you'll see that this 8% and the 30% only has about a 6 grand difference. So I know some of you are like afraid of like high interest rates, and you should be, right? You should be afraid of high interest rates, especially dealing with big amounts like mortgages. But what I'm saying is that some of you are really afraid to use this because you might have like a lower interest rate loan, especially in the early 2020s, and you might be able to pay off that loan, right? But you don't want to use a line of credit, and I get it, right? And if you can do extra payments, do extra payments. But I'm just saying, like, hey, even with the 8% line of credit, 3.5 years, not that bad. So let me go ahead and do this, and this is gonna be 68 divided by 12 plus, oopsie, plus 3.5, and then that's gonna be 9.17 years. And then we're debt free, so that's gonna be 320 plus 327. All right, 647K, and we're debt free. Awesome, right? Okay, well, that's it for today, folks. This is Korean Lantern Mentorship. So if you watch the end of the video, just tell me that it clicks, right? It clicks. Okay? Write that in the comments. Let me know you watched to the end of the video. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.